everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Stitch Sessions. We are into December now, the last month of 2019. And at the beginning of every month, you know what that means. We have to take you through this month's gift of crochet. And this is the last in the series of the 12 gifts of crochet. And we're going to be doing a follow-up video reviewing all of our gifts of crochet for this year. And stay tuned for our series for 2020. We've got another really cool project coming up ahead. But it's December's month of crochet, and it is this lovely, really cozy winter mint scarf. And I absolutely adore this scarf, mainly because it was a project that came up from a skein of yarn that was gifted to me. So someone had gifted me this really pretty teal colored yarn here, and this is from Simply Soft, I believe it's called. And so it's really got this beautiful sheen to it, and it's just lovely to the feel. So I had some of this white sparkle yarn lying around, so I thought I would combine the two to create this minty effect. And so how we made it is we used the corner to corner method, and that's how you get this kind of diagonal situation here. So we started in the bottom corner, and then we worked our way up, and then we continued to build from there. We then did put a border on here, and I know it's hard to believe because we maintained the color changes, and that was not difficult, just it takes some patience. So you've got to just make sure you've got lots of time on your hands and know that it's going to take you a little bit of time to do that. But the corner to corner pattern is such a fun and not too challenging way to add some beautiful texture to a project, whether it's a scarf or a blanket. And I really had a ton of fun making this. So that's what we're going to take you through today. So without further ado, let's just grab all of your materials and let's get stitching. All right, so to make your winter in mint scarf, you're going to need a couple of things. I am using two different colors for this project. You can certainly just use one or even a variegated yarn if you want to make it really fun. But I wanted to challenge myself by changing colors. And it is going to be a little bit of a challenge because we are going to be using the corner to corner method. Now, it isn't anything too crazy for a beginner. A beginner can certainly do this. You're just gonna have to pay a little extra attention to where you are and, of course, have a wee bit of extra patience. So here's what I've got to get started. Your scarf will take approximately anywhere between 300 to 400 grams, maybe even 500 grams, depending on how long you want your scarf to be. If you want it to be like a super scarf, you may want to get more yarn. I have two balls here. In fact, this is a fantastic color, and it was given to me at a stitch exchange that I held at one of my crochet classes, and one of the ladies had just used a wee bit of it and didn't know what to do with this color, and I saw it and I thought, I have exactly the perfect project for this color. So this skein normally has 170 grams. I would say there's probably about 125 here right now, so I know I've got a good amount in here. And this is the Soft and Shiny from Loops and Threads, in case you're wondering. And the color is actually called Aqua. I just love these tones. So I've got a skein of these, and then I've got a skein of the Bernat Premium yarn, and this color is called White Sparkle. And I'm not sure if you can see this or not, but I love this yarn, especially at Christmas time or the holidays. It does have a bit of this sparkly tinsel that runs through it, and I don't know if the camera can pick it up, but this color, once you put the turquoise, once you put the aqua next to it, it really picks up the little hint of sparkle in this. So I picked up a ball of this, and this is 142 grams. So I think that these two balls are going to be plenty for me. I also have a little bit of this one just left over from a previous project. So I'm going to use all of my yarn because, of course, that's always my goal. I want to use everything I have before I buy more. I'm trying to get through my yarn. So these are the two colors I'm using. I feel like 300 grams is going to be plenty for me, okay? And this is a medium weight yarn, size 4. So I am going to be using a 5.5 millimeter hook. A lot of times they call for a 5. For this project, I want my stitches to sit just a little bit extra relaxed and loose. So I'm using a 5.5, also known as an I hook or a 9. And as always, you want to have a pair of scissors on hand, nice and easy. And then you want a darning needle at the end to sew in your ends. So let's get started. For this project, I'm going to begin with the white color. So as the name of this stitch suggests, corner to corner, we are going to begin in the corner or one of the corners of our scarf. Okay, so I'm going to start with the white, and we are going to begin with a slip knot. To start, you're going to do a chain of 6. So we're going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, and 6. Once you've chained 6, you're going to find the 4th chain from the hook. So that's 1, 2, 3, and 4. And then you're going to double crochet into that stitch. So you'll yarn over into the 4th chain. You're going to insert, yarn over to pull through, yarn over, pull through 2, and pull through 2. Okay, so you have something that looks like that. So this is your 3 chains, and that's why in the 4th chain is where we inserted, because these 3 chains will count as the height of 1 double crochet, and it creates a little bit of a space there. Into the next 2 stitches, we are going to do a double crochet as well. So we're going to insert 1, pull through, and 2. And then we've got 1 more stitch left, and we are going to do a double crochet into that. Okay, so there we go. This is technically row 1. And for those of you that don't know the effect of the corner to corner, this is also known as a block. So the first row of your corner to corner project is 1 block. Your second row will have 2 blocks. So what I'm going to do is I am usually going to do 2 rows before I change color. I am most likely going to go ahead and do 3 rows just so that you understand the corner to corner stitch, so that if you don't want to change colors, you can go ahead and continue on. So we've created 1 block in row 1. So once you've come to the end, we're now going to go on to row 2. So to begin row 2, at the very end of the previous row, you always want to chain 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Then you'll turn your work, and just like we did at the beginning, you're going to find the 4th chain from the hook, 1, 2, 3, and 4, and into that 4th chain you will do a double crochet. So at the beginning of every row you chain 6, then find the 4th chain, do a double crochet, and then you will double crochet into each of the next 2 chains. So you're always going to do 3 double crochets after that. And then into my next stitch, which is right there, I'm going to do a double crochet. Okay, So you have something that looks like this. Now, be careful that you don't allow this to happen, because then your blocks are going to be side by side and it's going to be confusing as to where do I go now. So always remember this. Now that we're working up into the next row, once you've done your 3 double crochets side by side, you then want to attach it to the chain 3 space of the previous row. So here, if we left this sitting here, there is no chain 3 space because that is an actual double crochet stitch, right? So you can see your tail is here. In reality, you want it to be flipped this way, okay? So now you can see your chain 3 stitch, your chain 3 space is right here. So hopefully that makes sense. So when we finished the previous block, we came here, we chained 6. Oops, let me just turn that over. So really your work looks like this. Okay, so the chain 6 going up this way. So what we want to do now is we want to attach this to here, into the chain 3 space. So hopefully that doesn't confuse you. So that's what gives it that cool effect. Let me just take this out. That's what gives it that cool effect where when you look at the project closely, you're like, how did they do it where the stitches go this way and then the stitches go this way? So see, once you've done your row, you're going to have something that looks like this. So I just finished working on mine. So my work should look like this. Okay. So the idea is that, so I'm just going to hold that up a little bit there. So sometimes people might think that this is what you want to do, and that is not, okay? So for row 2, always remember that you want your tail from where you started to be towards your right side, okay? So it's going to give this little zigzag form, and that is correct, okay? Next, what we're going to do, see that chain 3 space? You're going to insert your hook into that space and you're going to slip stitch to join. So now your blocks have indeed been attached to each other, but now they are kind of in opposing directions. And I'm sorry if this is a little bit funky because in the first couple of rows, it's always tricky to see. But once you build up your work, it will make much more sense. So once you've slip stitched, you are then going to chain 3. And you are now going to do 3 double crochets into this chain space here. Okay. So whenever we start a row, we chain 6. But as we continue to work through our project, we will always chain 3 after we slip stitch into a space. And I have one more here. Okay, so now we are officially done row 2. So now you can see what we mean by corner to corner. We started with 1 block. Now row 2 has 2 blocks. So basically if we sit our work down like this, we started in this corner and we're working out this way, okay? But essentially when you're working on it, it's generally to you looking this way, okay? So I'm going to continue on to I'm going to continue on to row 3, just so that you can get a feeling of how to continue on. So we're starting a new row, so that means we chain 6. Every time we start a new row, we chain 6. Okay. Once you've chained 6, you can turn your work just to kind of make sure that it makes sense to you, because you're always working, if you're right-handed, you're working from right to left. If you're left-handed, you're working left to right. Sometimes I wait to turn just because I want to be able to see these stitches nicely. Okay, so again, 4th chain from the hook, 1, 2, 3, 4. I'm going to insert to do a double crochet there. And then I will do a double crochet in the last 2 stitches. So you're always going to have 3 double crochets side by side. My next stitch is here. And there you have it. So see the chain 3, or the last 3 chains, creates a space. We've got 3 double crochets, and now we're up to the rest of our work. Now remember, this tail should always be down. So if I'm doing this, I've got it flipped around wrong. And this is where people can make little boo-boos on this project, because it's easy when you're working into chains a lot. It's easy for this to flip around. But always remember, your tail should be down. Okay, so if I flip it this way, now at least I know I'm working on the right side of the work. So the next thing I want to do is I want to slip stitch into a chain 3 space, and it's always in the left corner of your block here. So the first block of this one, and there it is right there. Okay, so what I will do is I will insert my hook into that space and slip stitch to join. Okay, so you can see that block is now sitting nicely on top here. Anytime you slip stitch, you will chain 3, and then you will do 3 double crochets into the space. So we have 1, we have 2, and we have 3. Once we finish our 3 double crochets, we are going to slip stitch into the next chain 3 space. So here we go. That's it right there. So I'm going to insert and slip stitch. I'm going to chain 3. And then I'm going to do 3 double crochets. So you would never end a row with a slip stitch. You're always going to end with the 3 double crochets. So if you slip stitch, you might think, well, this is the end of my row, easy peasy. But in reality, you have to finish once you've done you'll know you're finished once you've done 3 double crochets. So into this space, I'm going to do 3 double crochets. Okay, and I need to do 1 more. And sorry guys if this white yarn actually might be funny to see against this light blue backdrop. But I'm going to change colors next, so hopefully that's going to help you out. Okay, so now when I finished my 3 double crochets and I met the edge of my work, now I am done. Now I am done row 3. Another great way to just double check is each row will have the same number of blocks. So I'm done row 3. Row 3 should have 3 blocks. So I have 1, 2, and 3. Or you can count it as 3 steps in that case. See, so if I pull that apart a little bit, you can see row 2, 2 blocks. Row 1 only had 1 block. And this is your basic corner to corner stitch technique. I am now going to change colors because I want to create a striped effect. So the thing is with carrying yarn with this project is it's not the easiest to do, and it takes some finagling to hide the yarn. It can be done, but I want to keep this really kind of beginner friendly-ish. So we're not going to worry about carrying the yarn for this project. So once you come to the end, you're just going to snip your yarn there. And now we're going to change colors. So I'm going to introduce my new color by actually feeding it through this loop. Some people like the idea of just pulling through, tightening, and then tying on the new one. And that is perfectly a-okay too. just when I'm in the flow of working, I just want to introduce this one right away through here. I'm just going to feed this through just like that. And then I'm going to tighten the white one. And I'm going to do my chain 6 as we usually do when we start a new row. So I have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Okay, then just to give an extra little security here, I am going to knot these two together. Later on, we will talk about sewing our ends and then hiding some of this with a little bit of a border. So not going to worry too much about it. So just gave it a couple of knots and it should sit quite nicely. Okay, so I've done my chain 6 as we've done in previous rows. And now I'm going to do the usual. I'm going to find the 4th chain from the hook, 1, 2, 3, and 4. And I'm going to do a double crochet into that stitch, into that chain. Oops. Just like that. Okay. Don't worry if this is stretching a bit, completely normal. It will all even itself out as we go along. So into the next chain, which is right there. Right there is the next one. I'm going to double crochet. And then one more double crochet into the very next one, which is snuggled right in there because this got stretched out. So you just have to have a little bit of patience. There we go. Okay, so there is our first block of row 4. Okay. So now we're going to do, remember, if you see this white tail on the upside, you're facing the wrong way. Make sure you turn your work so that that very first tail that we worked on is downward. Okay, then you know you're on the right side of your work. So once you've done your 3 double crochets, you want to find the chain 3 space. Remember, it's always the space to the left of the first block there, and you're going to insert and slip stitch to join. Okay, so now we've created the first block of our 4th row. Once we slip stitch, we're going to chain 3. And then we're going to double crochet 3 times into this chain space. So we have 1, 2, and 3. Okay. Once we've double crocheted 3 times, we find the next chain space right there and we slip stitch. Oops. See? So you can now with the color change, you can see your blocks much more prominently. Okay, so you know what to do. Chain 3 and 3 double crochets into your chain space. Oops. 1, 2, and 3. Oh, careful not to split your yarn. And then find your next chain 3 space right there, slip stitch to join. Okay, so now you can really see the blocks. Row 1, row 2, row 3, and this is row 4. We need to do one more block. Okay, so we chain 3, 1, 2, 3, and 3 more double crochets into this space. 2, and 3. So once we've done 3 double crochets and we're at the end, we know that's the end of our row. So row 4 has 4 blocks in it. I'm going to keep this color because I'm going to change colors every 2 rows. So what do we do to start a new row? I'm sure you're tired of me repeating this by now, but I want to make sure that you guys really get this because it is simple, but it can be easy to get confused because of the angles we're working on. So remember, we chain 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and the 4th chain, 1, 2, 3, 4, double crochet. So at this point, I think we've done it enough times that you should be getting the hang of how to start each row. Then we do another 2 more double crochets into each of those chains. Okay, and again, always make sure our first tail should be down. Okay, so the corner tail. Don't worry about these side tails. If these are confusing you, weave them in right away. And in fact, once we change our colors more often, you're probably going to want to weave in your ends every few rows just so that this visually does not confuse you. I know some of you are not crazy at all about weaving in ends. I love weaving in ends. I just find it very relaxing. The only thing is I find it annoying when I have to do it every few rows. But if you find it's confusing you, definitely do so. I'm sticking with this color for 1 more row. So I know that I've just double crocheted 3 times. So see, this would have been incorrect. I need to slip stitch into the next chain 3 space and then chain 3 and begin all over again. So at this point, I am going to let you loose for a while. So you can really see now if I put my work down here, and I'm just going to put this back here so it doesn't distract us. You can see how our blocks are building on each other. Okay, so 1, 2, 3, 4, that was the last round. The next round we'll have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. Okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to keep doing this until you come to 10 rows. This will all depend on how wide you want your scarf to be. So once we get to our desired number of rows, we're going to kind of reevaluate the situation again. If you want a scarf that's a little bit wider, then you will add a couple of more rows on. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I am going to let you loose. I'll meet up with you again once I reintroduce the white, just to start showing you how the contrast is going to look. Okay, I've now finished 10 rows and my work looks like this. So you can really see that it is taking form, and you can definitely tell how we started from the corner and we're working our way up. So each time we begin, we add a block, and each time we end, we add a block. So because we're making a scarf, we need to actually stop adding a block on one of these sides. Otherwise, it would just continue to form a perfect square shape. And because we are doing a scarf, we want it to be a little bit more rectangular. So eventually we have to stop increasing one block on one side. And eventually later on, we will stop increasing a block on the other side in order to bring the 2 corners together. But for now, because we want to continue creating length and not width anymore, we're now going to talk about how we are going to keep one side even. So this is the end of my 10th row, and normally I would continue another row of the same color. But I wanted to show you how I'm not going to chain 6 here. Okay, so we finished the row, and so here's how we're going to gauge it. See how I have this tail here? And by the way, you probably may have noticed I've woven in most of my ends so far, just to keep things looking clean for you guys. The side with my tail from now on will always be the side I increase my blocks on. So because this is the side that does not have the tail, I'm not going to chain 6 at the end. Okay. So I've just finished doing my last block here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn my work, and then I'm going to go into the base of that first stitch. What I'm going to do is I'm just going to slip stitch. And then I'm going to slip stitch my way across until I hit that space. Okay, now some people opt to slip stitch in between the stitches. That's just a personal preference. I'm just using the guide of the actual stitch to slip stitch across. So for those of you that have done granny squares, you may recognize this technique for when we need to start back into a corner space. So here we are needing to start in our block space. I'm going to do one more slip stitch into that space. And so now what we've done is we have not added an additional block, and we're going to start one block in. So now you would chain 3, as you usually would do when you come across a block space. And we're going to continue as usual. 3 double crochets into that chain space. And slip stitch into the next space. So the only thing that's changed now, because we're focusing on creating length to our scarf, is that we are no longer increasing a block. So if I just set that down, so normally we would have added another block out here to create more width. But as you can see, the slip stitch just snips it in so that we are not increasing in width anymore. So we just slip stitched over, and now we created our block inwards. Okay, so the rest of so from here on out on this side, and on the other side actually, you're going to see that we're no longer creating it out this way. We're going to keep working upward now. So if I turn my scarf this way, we can see that we've got our 10 rows here, or 10 blocks. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10. So we are no longer going to increase, and that's why we've slip stitched up the side of our 10th block. And so now we're no longer going to increase the width, we're just going to increase the length. So this side will still continue to get an extra block because we want to increase. So hopefully that makes sense. So this is the beginning of row 11 for us, okay? And you're just going to continue the rest of the row as usual. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to set you loose for the rest of round 11, and I'll meet you at the end just to show you how we're keeping that side the same, because it's the side that has the tail. So we will increase a block there. But I'll meet you there once I finish row 11. And it just so happens, so we're at the end of row 11. I'm losing count now. We're end of row 11. It just so happens I will be changing colors now. So I finished my last block like I normally do, and then I'm going to introduce my secondary color as I have been doing. Just going to squeeze that tight there, and just going to secure this. Okay, so I've got my new color, and so I'm at the end of that block. Like I said, it's the side that has the tail, so I am going to chain 6. So from here on out, the side that has the tail, the starting tail, is the side that I will chain 6 on. So I'm going to chain 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Then I will do my usual. I'll find the 4th chain from the hook. 1, 2, 3, and 4. and work to create a regular block as we've been doing. So this is it. This is the main thing. This side stays the same. We're adding a block on the tail side, as I like to call it. And on the non-tail side, we will just slip stitch across. So I just wanted to make sure to show you that we are still adding a block on this side, and make sure that my tail is always on the bottom, and slip stitch across. So this way, on the other side, I slip stitched over, so that wouldn't build up or actually build out, because on the other side, that one goes out this way. So see, this block goes out this way. So we slip stitched so it wouldn't increase. We're going to keep going up. This one, we did our chain 6 because we want the rows to keep increasing. I really hope that doesn't confuse you, because I know with corner to corner, it can be confusing as to which corner am I on and where am I going. So I'm just going to work one more here, one more block, and then I'll stretch this out just to give you a visual. Because I think at this point we've done these blocks enough times now that I feel confident that you have the gist of it. You know, you always chain 3 and then 3 double crochets into each chain 3 space. Slip stitch into the next chain 3 into the next chain 3 space and repeat. So I just want to show you how it's going to start. There we go. Okay, so just want to show you how now we are starting to build upward. Okay, so now when we count across 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 blocks, and up the side we have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12 blocks. So that's how you know that we are now creating length over width, or while maintaining the width the same. And that's it, gang. So you're going to keep doing it in this fashion for rows and rows and rows and rows and rows until you get the length that you want. I generally like my scarves to be around the 60-inch mark because I like to be able to wrap it around myself comfortably. So, so far we are starting row 12, and actually, if I measure row 12, that's giving me approximately 9 inches. So for me to reach my 60 inches, I am going to do, well, I'm going to do at least 60 rows. 60 rows is going to give me less than 60 inches, but I'm going to say 70 rows. So that's what I'm going to start off with, and then I'm going to leave it up to you guys to do as many rows as you need. And once I get up to my 70 rows or 80, depending on how I'm liking how this is looking, then I'm going to meet back up with you, and I'm going to talk about how we are then going to close off our other corner, because right now our work is going to continue to work up on an angle. At some point when you want to close off your work, so to speak, we have to figure out how to close off that corner. It's going to be similar technique as what I just showed you here, but I will meet up with you so that we can do it together. In the meantime, continue on with as many rows as you like. I'm going to go up to my 70 rows and meet you back in a bit. So once you have the length that you are happy with, so mine is actually now at 60 inches, which is the length that I generally like to have. I'm so happy with the way it came out. Love how this turquoisey color against the white really picks up the little flecks of tinsel running through the white. I'm not sure if the camera will pick it up, but it's kind of this, I usually only see this white around Christmas time. There's just a wee bit of sparkle that runs through it. Unfortunately, it doesn't look like the camera's picking it up. But anyway, I am very happy with the way this came out. And so now what happens is it's time for us to now square off our end. So as we've been doing so far with the slip stitch method on the one side so that we would no longer continue to increase the width, we're now going to do it on both sides. So what will happen is this now will stop growing. We're going to square this off here, and then eventually these two sides are going to meet in the middle. So that's what I'm going to show you how to do now. And as you can see, for the most part, I have been sewing in my ends as I've gone. Whoops, I have to figure that one out. I have to snip that one off after. Just every few rows, I've just been weaving them in as I go, just so that they kind of stay out of my way. So I just finished the white row here. So I'm going to introduce my turquoise back in. And here is where we're going to start squaring things off. So let me just secure this by tying it here. I just like doing that right off at the top so I don't have to worry about it. Okay, and then now I'm just going to snip off the white so I can get that out of the way for now. So normally what we would do here is we would do our chain 3 and then work our way into here, but we're going to do the slip stitch method just like we've been doing on the other side. So every time now we come up to a corner, this is what we're going to do to square off our corner here. So now what I want to do is I'm going to chain 1 just because it's a bit snug here. And I'm going to go right into that very first stitch here. Hopefully the camera will focus okay. Right into that very first stitch there, and I'm just going to slip stitch. And usually I try to keep this somewhat relaxed. I don't want my work to bunch up, and that would happen if I slip stitch too tightly. Okay. I slip stitch across again, and now I can chain 3. So as you can see, we're now squaring off the top of our work here, and you're now going to work into your chain space as usual by doing a shell stitch or 3 double crochets. And I'm just whipping through this because at this point I am assuming that you are very comfortable with your double crochets and your shell stitch. And then I just move on to the next chain space and oops. And then I just come to the next chain space and I slip stitch. There we go. And then chain 3 and work my shells as usual. Okay, so you can see, hopefully you can, that now this side is starting to square off here. And again, I probably slip stitched that tighter than I would have liked, you see, because that's what tends to happen. So make sure that you stay nice and relaxed. Okay, so you use the slip stitch method on both sides. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish this row so I can meet you on the other side just to go over that again. I like to do a bit of repetition only because I just feel repetition can never hurt, and the more you do something, the better it will make you at it. So here I am at the other end here, and I'm just going to slip stitch into that last chain space and turn my work. I'm going to keep this nice and relaxed here, and then I'm just going to slip stitch into there. I don't always do the chain 1 at the end like I did previously. It just depends on if I feel it's been a bit too tightly stitched. I might do that chain one to give it a little bit of breathing room. But see there, I just turned over. I'm quite happy with that. And I've slip stitched across, and then I continue on. I chain 3 again, and then I work the usual shells into that space there. So that is it. That is how you are going to square off your project now, and eventually you will run out of rows, so to speak. So you can see, let me just pull this up a bit. So you can see I've squared it off here and I've squared it off here. So now eventually we're just going to build until this side hits here. And then we will fasten off and we'll have a look at this fabulous winter mint pattern we've created. So go ahead and do that and finish off your corners, and I will meet you at the very last part of your corner. And we are done. So I'm really excited at how this came out. I love the effect of the turquoisey, greeny blue and the white. I just love how it came out. So I just have a couple little ends to sew in. So your scarf is done. What I am going to do though is I am going to add an edging all the way around my project. So if I just bring it a little closer up, you can see it just creates this like little bumpy, ridgy edge here on either side. And you can see a little bit maybe where I've sewn in some of my ends. Now I'm kind of funny that way. I like to really have more of a stitched up edge, if you will. So I'm going to go ahead and now do a finishing round all the way around. So that is why when I finished my final corner here, super excited, I did not cut my yarn off. So, and now you can do this in a couple of different ways. If you wanted to, you can do the finishing round in just one color, like in all white, or if you still had some of your other color left over, you could do it all in that color. I am actually going to do this border, but try to maintain the color changes as I go. So I'm going to do a bit of the white, and then I'm going to come around, do the turquoise, etc., etc. So here I go. So I'm going to just continue on with the white that I currently have now. Okay, and so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to do single crochet stitches. It's just nice and simple, easy to do. So I've slip stitched to join, as you can see. So I'm going to chain 1. And what I want to do, because a lot of the times I'm working into the sides of stitches, a double crochet generally will comfortably accommodate 2 single crochets. So this chain 1 already counts as 1. So I want to find a loop somewhere in the middle of this double crochet stitch, and it's not going to be exact. So you just want to nestle your hook anywhere in there, pull through, and keep it relaxed, because if you start to crochet tightly, it's going to scrunch up your work, which we don't want. So we've got single crochet there. Now as I move along, there's a space there right at the bottom of that chain 3, single crochet, and now luckily I actually have some stitches I can work into here. So I am just going to find a spot, and actually these have been slip stitched into, so they may be a little tricky, but again, find anywhere you can nestle your hook through and do a single crochet. And then the next one is right here. And okay, now because the next one is more than likely going to be a turquoise, I'm not going to finish this stitch. So I'm going to just grab my turquoise color here. So this is the thing when we're changing colors, is as just before you're about to change to the new color, you want to resolve the last stitch with the new color. So I'm just going to introduce my turquoise color there. And I am going to pull that through to resolve the stitch there. Okay, so now I've got a few of the white. Now I'm going to, wherever I see the turquoise, I'm going to use the turquoise. Wherever I see the white, I'm going to use the white. So while the white is not in use, I'm just going to leave it tucked or nestled in just along here because I'm going to stitch over it. Okay, and I'm going to also try and hide my tail here. So now I'm going to go into probably the top of this chain 3 here, and it might be a little tight, so just be patient. And I'm going to single crochet, again keeping it relaxed. We don't want the stitches to bunch. Okay, and I'm just going to go along the way here. So I'm going to do one more at the base of this stitch and yarn over. And now luckily I've got some stitches to work into, so I'm just going to go into this one here, and the whole time I'm going to work over my tail and the white yarn that I'm not using. So I'm going to go into the next one, and every couple of stitches you might want to just sit back, lay it flat, and just make sure that nothing is bunching. If it's bunching, you're either stitching too tight or you've put too many stitches into one spot. And let's see if, yeah, I like how that's looking. So you can see, if I just bring it up here, it just looks like it's seamlessly moving from one color to the other. So let's see, I think I'm going to fit one more stitch in here of the turquoise, but now I'm not going to resolve it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just take my turquoise and put it down, and now bring up the white, and I'm going to bring it in to resolve that stitch, and then just pull this a little bit, whoops, wrong one, pull that a little bit more snug. There we go. And now I'm going to do some in the white stitches. So I'm going to just find a spot here where I can nestle my hook. Sorry guys about the focus. This camera has a mind of its own, and it just seems to be very testy. There we go. Okay, so this obviously was a chain 3, so I just need to find somewhere else right there, just at the bottom of the stitch. So generally you don't want to have more than 2 single crochets in the side of a double crochet, and you can just faintly see that the green is going to be carried through, just like you'll be able to see the white just ever so faintly will be carried through. That's okay. It'll just add to the artistry of it. And then in the next stitch, just trying to get that tail out of the way. And then in the next. So a lot of times where it's been slip stitched really kind of closes it up. So don't panic, just find a spot. Anywhere will do, as long as it sits nice and even. So I can tell that I'm most likely going to change to my turquoise. So I'm just going to actually resolve this stitch with the turquoise. So generally 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, you're usually doing about 4 stitches before you need to resolve with the next color. Okay, so now I'm going to go into my turquoise color. I'm just going to insert, find a spot, and trying to tuck in the other colors in the meantime. And then make sure they're nice and even, and then I'll find another spot here and single crochet. So I think you're getting the gist of what we're doing here now. So I'm just going to do a couple more stitches just so that you'll be able to get the effect. Okay, so if I lay my work down, there we go. There we go. So you can really see that it just gives it a really nice, smooth finish. And I'm actually really happy with that. If it bothers you that you can see a wee bit of the other color, then I guess you just wouldn't do this edge, but it doesn't bother me one bit. It actually, I find that it ties everything in and you don't really notice it. So I am super happy with this. I'm going to continue on. I'm going to finish all the way around. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to just meet you here in the corner, just because as you come around the corners, you just need to do a couple of extra stitches, and I want to make sure that I guide you through that. So if that's what you're going to do, if you're following along with me, go ahead and do that. I'll meet you at the corner. If you have decided to be done, then you are good to go, and you can enjoy your scarf. You can give it as a gift, whatever you choose. And remember, if you're not already subscribed, make sure you do so that you stay up to date on all of our fun tutorials and stitch session conversations. We love having you around. And in the meantime, I'm going to meet the rest of you at the end of this next corner. Well, guys, it seems we have lost the footage of the final corner we did, but here are a few pictures and videos of the final scarf, which I am so in love with. And here you can see how the border turned out, which I'm very happy with. And like I said before, you don't have to put the border on, and it'll look just as lovely. So there you have it, the corner to corner winter mint scarf. And I hope you've enjoyed working on this project. Always love sharing my crochet journey with you. And I look forward to sharing more fun tutorials and crochet projects with you. So hope you guys have a wonderful day. Happy crocheting. Take care.